Hey there friend, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah, this is Brown Family Goods, and it's time for another week of meal prep. Today I'm getting started on 4 meal prep recipes so that we'll have a little bit more variety this week. All of them pretty healthy, calorie conscious, all of that, a little bit low carb, and these are going to be gluten-free recipes. Not that you would really miss the gluten. Instead of maybe a bread or a pasta recipe, we're going to be doing things with rice and veggies. So I hope that you'll enjoy these. I wanted to let you know also, in addition to showing you all the things that I'm prepping today, I also have printable recipes for these meals for you. There'll be 4 recipes on my website for today's meals, plus the recipe for the sweet treat that we're going to prepare together. Along with those recipes, there's going to be a grocery list and a prep list so that you can get the veggies and some of the prep work done on one day and then do the cooking on the next day if you choose to do that. I wanted to remind you as well, if you see anything in this video that you like, I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up. That really helps my channel so much, as well as pushing the video out to other people who may enjoy a meal prep video too. So thanks so much for being here. Let's get started on today's meal prep. All right, we'll get started with this sheet pan recipe. What I have here prepared is I cut up about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. I just diced these into about a 1-inch cube, nice and small. About 1 pound of fresh broccoli and 2 pounds of turkey sausage. You can get whatever kind of sausage you like. It's going to affect the macros if it's a beef sausage, if it's a turkey sausage, if it's chicken sausage. So you want to adjust the recipe or the macros of the recipe based on whatever sausage that you get. Start with the sweet potatoes and the sausage because I do like the sausage to get nice and crispy in the oven. So first I'll put the sweet potatoes down. I'm going to mix up a little bit of an olive oil with some seasonings to put over the sausage and sweet potatoes. So I'll just spread it out, and I'm going to spread the sausage over top as well. The sausage gives a lot of flavor to this dish, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and put it on at the same time as the sweet potatoes. Before I put this into the oven though, I want to mix up a little bit of an olive oil to go on top. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And I do usually measure the olive oil just to make sure I don't go too crazy with it. Once the fat starts to render from the sausage, you'll have plenty of fat on the pan for this. So I'm going to put in some pepper, some garlic powder, some smoked paprika, and some salt. All right, so we'll just drizzle this over the top and give this all kind of a toss around in the oil. And then it's going to go straight into the oven. I have the oven preheated to 400 degrees. That temperature, everything that we cook today in the oven is going to cook on 400 degrees. My brown rice just went off in the Instant Pot. I have that cooking up. The method that I use to cook brown rice in the Instant Pot is so simple. This cat is running around like a fool today. We have a cat now inside. We have always had a cat outside, Sheldon. Now we have a cat inside. His name is Tango. He was my son's cat who is now staying with us. He provides entertainment all day, every day, sometimes at night too. I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the oven, and then I'm going to tell you about how I cook the brown rice in the Instant Pot. Okay, so that's our first thing in the oven. We'll give the sweet potatoes a head start of about 15 minutes cooking time before we add on that broccoli to the pan and toss everything around again. So let me tell you about how I cook brown rice in the Instant Pot though. I just put 2 cups of brown rice in there is what we need for today, and I also add 2 cups of liquid. So you can use water, you can use chicken broth. I had some chicken broth in the freezer. I just took it out, thawed it, 2 cups of liquid for the rice. And then I also add 1 teaspoon of salt before I turn it on high pressure. Cook it on high pressure in the Instant Pot for 15 minutes. Once the timer goes off for the high pressure cook, I let it naturally release for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then you can release the pressure at that point and it's completely done and cooked through just perfectly. So I am using chicken thighs for this. That is what I have written in the recipe, and that's what the nutritional and calorie information will reflect. So this is a sheet pan, basically, dinner as well. So everything is cut up. The chicken is cut into about 1-inch pieces. Broccoli is cut up into small pieces. I'm also using some zucchini and some red bell pepper for this recipe. So I have in here some fresh herbs. You can definitely use dried herbs as well. I just happen to have oregano and thyme growing in my green stalk right outside. So I'm going to use fresh. Also, it's going to get the juice of 1 lemon. So I'm going to mix up sort of the flavoring all in one bowl here. I'm going to do the juice of 1 lemon, 2 tablespoons of olive oil as well. I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. The other seasonings that we're going to go in is some salt and some pepper. This is 2 pounds of chicken plus all of the veggies, so I'm going to use about a teaspoon of salt and then pepper to taste. I have all of my herbs and everything mixed up in here. I'm just going to pour it over the chicken. I'll give the chicken a good toss, and then we're going to actually go ahead and cook all of this at once, including the broccoli. I'm only going to use about half of this red bell peppers because this is 2 bell peppers cut up. I only need 1 for this recipe. So first we'll start by tossing the chicken, then we'll add everything else in. Now in goes 1 large zucchini that I have cut up. As I said, we'll use about half of this bell pepper because we need this for another recipe as well. And the broccoli. Should I add the broccoli or should I add it after about 15 minutes? I think we will hold off on the broccoli and add it for the last of the cooking, just to make sure that the chicken gets really, really done. I like chicken thighs, but I like for them to be pretty well done when I eat them because I don't like them to be, you know how they can be. You know how they can be. So I like for them to be pretty well done. So we'll wait for the broccoli and add it about the last 10 minutes of cooking. Yet another sheet pan all lined and ready to go. And I'm just going to spread the chicken out on here and we'll let it cook by itself for about 20 minutes. And then we'll come back with the broccoli after 20 minutes. Again, this is going to cook in the oven at 400 degrees, just like the other dish that we have in there. Whoops, lost a red pepper overboard. So spread everything out nice and even. That way the chicken can get some good color on it when it cooks. I think this is going to be so good. This is ready to go into the oven, and we will let this cook by itself before adding the broccoli for 20 minutes, and then we'll go back later and add the broccoli. So it has been 15 minutes that this has been in the oven. Our sweet potato and sausage dish. We'll give this a toss around here to get everything coated up again, and then we're going to add in the broccoli. Ready to go back into the oven for another 15 minutes. Okay, it's time to add the broccoli to our chicken thighs dish. So I poured, there was a bit of water. You know how when chicken cooks, sometimes it releases a good bit of water. I just poured off most of that liquid into my sink there. Now I'm just going to add in, it's 1 pound of broccoli. We'll add that in and give it a toss. I'll use my tongs. So the chicken is basically cooked through after about, I actually went 25 minutes with mine just because I wanted the chicken to have a nice head start on all of this. Chicken is basically cooked through at this point, which is great. And now we'll just toss this broccoli in. That way it can cook. I'm going to put it back in for about 15 minutes. Whoops, I ripped my paper. I knew I was going to do that with these. That's okay. Okay, we'll give the broccoli a toss through. That way it can be coated in all of the flavor as well. The zucchini's looking good. So this is going to go back into the oven for another 15 minutes and it will be done at that point. You see my sweet potato dish is cooling back here on the back of the counter. So back into the oven for 15 minutes and then this one will be complete also. Okay, we're almost ready to move on to our next 2 dishes. Let me get a few things out of the way here and then we will start on those. But while I'm clearing up here, I thought that I would share with you how I made our sweet treat for the week. So I made some no-bake peanut butter balls yesterday. Let me show you exactly how I put those together. They're so simple. They're very delicious. So you have to make sure that you limit yourself on those, but they are absolutely incredible. I hope you'll give them a try. Check out how I made those yesterday. This is going to be so good, I think. So this is like, we're going to bake up some turkey meatballs to begin with, and we're going to make a bit of a sauce that's going to go over those turkey meatballs. That sounds delicious to me. So into my bowl here, I'm just going to add 2 pounds. I have some hot soapy water back here to just kind of stay ahead on the dishes while we do our meal prep. I highly recommend that. Or if your dishwasher is your go-to, definitely empty the dishwasher the morning you're going to start your meal prep. So the turkey meatballs are just going to be super simple. Basically, you could do this recipe one of 2 ways. You could make this all as like a skillet dish where you brown up the meat in the skillet and then make the sauce with the meat in it. But I thought turkey meatballs might be a little bit of a more interesting way for us to eat this throughout the week. So I'm going to make turkey meatballs with mine. So into my bowl here, I have 2 pounds of 93% lean turkey, and I'm going to add in half a cup of very finely shredded Parmesan cheese. I'll also add in some Italian seasoning, salt and pepper, and a little bit of this minced garlic. I'm going to use about a tablespoon of the minced garlic. Maybe a little bit more. So if you had eggs, you could put eggs in here. A lady came through when I was putting up my groceries this morning, and she bought all the eggs that I had on hand. I literally only had 11, and she bought all of those. So I haven't been back down to check the coops or anything, and I'm not going to. You could definitely put an egg in here. So I'm going to put about a heaping half a tablespoon of this Italian seasoning into mine. We're also going to add Italian seasoning into the sauce that we make in a few minutes. So that'll be flavorful as well. I'll add in some pepper and some salt, and then we're just going to work this all together and make some quick meatballs. I've got our lemon chicken dish out of the oven. It is back on the back counter there to cool down as well. And now we're going to move on to the sauce for the turkey meatballs. It's a simple sauce. I just dropped my bowl into the pan. But it starts with just onions. We're going to saute down some bell pepper. We'll saute down. And some mushrooms. So if you're not a big mushroom lover, you could always leave these out. I'm not a huge mushroom lover, but from time to time, I enjoy them. So I'm going to put them in today. I've got my heat turned on about medium-high, and we'll just let everything saute down until it gets a little bit soft. Veggies are pretty softened and have sauteed here. The water is kind of cooked off because you know how they do. They kind of tend to release some liquid, and then everything will kind of cook off if you give it another few minutes. So now I'm going to add in, I keep throwing vegetables over that way. I'm going to add in a good size teaspoon or teaspoon and a half of garlic. Let me turn this down a hair because when I put those tomatoes in, it's going to splatter me. Work the garlic in for just about 30 seconds. I'll also go ahead and put my seasonings in, which is a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and a teaspoon of salt. In goes 1 can of, I get the petite diced tomatoes. If you don't mind it chunkier, you can get the bigger diced if you prefer. This is 14.5 ounces, and I did not drain the liquid from these, so it's all going in here. This is really steaming me today. And now we're just going to let this cook together for about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so until the tomatoes start to break down and the flavors kind of come together a bit more. I am really looking forward to this. Alan is not a huge fan of tomatoey dishes. He is not a huge fan of tomatoes at all. So this is something that probably I will eat exclusively, but this looks delicious to me, especially with that spinach when we put it in. I am really looking forward to this. This has all the things that I like, and we don't really eat them very often. So I'm just going to let this kind of cook and simmer on a nice low heat. I have it turned down to sort of medium low at this point rather than medium high. And I'm gonna let this simmer together for about 20 minutes until the meatballs are done. They should be done in 6 minutes. They have 6 minutes left on them. Once they're done, I'm also gonna add them into here just to kind of bring all the flavors together for this dish. I think it's gonna be excellent. Now, while we wait for this sauce to come together and meatballs and everything to be done, I'm going to start to cook up the chicken for the Mexican chicken bowls. I have here 2 pounds of chicken breast that I just cut into 1-inch cubes. All I'm going to do with it to begin with is just cook it up in the skillet here. Probably have to do at least 2 batches to get this all cooked, but I'm just going to season it with salt and pepper. And then the rest of the seasoning for this dish will go in later on. You could use whatever kind of chicken you want to use for this. If you want to just use a rotisserie chicken, you could probably do that. So cook the chicken in any way that you like. I'm going to do it in the skillet here. That way it's the way that I like. But you can do it. You can cook it. You can poach it. You can roast it, bake it. It does not matter for this recipe. Just cut up into 1-inch cubes if you're using chicken breast, or pull or shred some chicken if you cook it in a different way. I'm going to kind of add the pan drippings as well, just because I think they'll really help with the depth of flavor that we get. Kind of toss these with the sauce, and then we'll let this all simmer together for just a little bit before we add in the spinach. Calls for 2 cups of spinach. So I'm going to put about half of this container. I'm just tearing it so it's a little bit smaller. So now just pop the lid back on and let this sit here and steam for just a minute. I've got all my chicken cooked and browned, and it is in here. It's cooked through, so you don't have to worry about that. It's completely done at this point, and look at how delicious it looks, number one. So in this recipe, you have a couple of options here. I am not going to, you could add all of your cooked rice in there and mix it all together. I'm going to add about half, just because I don't want the dish as rice heavy. Alan doesn't prefer a ton of rice in his. I don't mind it, but this way it'll be a little less rice heavy, and we will have a bit of extra rice to put with other dishes if we feel like it. So I left about half of my rice there. I'm just going to put that, I'll just store that away for later if we want to have a little bit of rice. Usually it's me. If I want to have a little bit of rice with one of the meals, like that tomato dish or whatever, then I'll have it. Because Alan is never adding more rice to anything, I can tell you that. Okay, so into this dish is going to go some salsa, some green chilies. I'm going to add about half of this can. I should have got a small can, but I got a big one because I was back and forth on making the decision. Also is going to be 1 can of corn and 1 can of black beans. All of that can just go directly in here. In addition to the seasonings, I'm going to add, this is half a teaspoon of cumin and half a teaspoon of chili powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle this right over top, and I will also add some salt and pepper. Probably going to add about a teaspoon of salt. This is a 1/4 teaspoon measure that I have left here. That's still clean. So I'm just going to use it. Okay, there goes a teaspoon of that. And some pepper. Now some of this salsa, I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup of salsa in mine. And then I'll add about half of this can, as I said, of the green chilies. These are medium, I think. You can get whatever spice level you like, because they do have hot ones typically as well. So just mix this up, and the chicken is in good sized pieces. That way, if Alan doesn't feel like eating the rice or whatever, he can basically pick around it, which is good for him because sometimes he just wants the protein out of whatever dish it is. I don't know, it doesn't look like much rice to me. I'll leave it like this and add if I want to add. Now for me, I don't usually add cheese to things, but if you had it left in your calorie budget to add cheese to this, you could always add cheese as well. There's lots of good like fat-free and low-fat cheeses out there. It's just not something that we eat a ton of. There's certain things that we eat cheese on, of course, but adding it into something like this where the flavor is kind of lost and you don't really notice it anyway, it just adds more calories than anything else. So yeah, I'm not going to add it into mine, but if you wanted it, you certainly could. Let me taste this and see if we have the seasonings where I want them. I'm just going to taste kind of the rice and corn and everything. It's pretty good, actually. Chicken has a lot of flavor in and of itself. Do I want anything else in here? I might add the rest of the salsa. It's not very much more. I think I can add it. I think I can slip it by. That was probably about a half a cup or 3/4 cup of salsa in total. And this will keep everything nice and moist as well. When you go to reheat it, it's good to have some liquid in there. That way things don't get dried out. So if I'm reheating a meal prep dish that doesn't have liquid in it, like it's just meat, starch, and vegetable that are kind of separate components, I typically will add a drizzle of water to the container, whatever container I'm heating it up in, before I put it in the microwave, because otherwise things can come out a bit dry. I always tell Alan to do that too. He never does. His stuff looks dry as a bone. He doesn't care. He still eats it. But sometimes when you reheat something, you might need to add a titch of moisture to it in whatever form. So like this, you could add some more salsa and then put it in the microwave with your fresh salsa on top, and that would be delicious. Okay, so that has basically all of our dishes done. When I go to eat this week, I'll probably eat mine with a little bit, like a 1/4 of an avocado. Oh, I did cut up some lime wedges that we can squeeze. I'm going to put those in our meal prep containers too, to go along with this. This is going to be good. What else do we have? I think we've got everything completed. Now we just need to portion it all into our meal prep containers. We're going to make 20 meals total, so 5 of each recipe is what we will have this week to choose from, and I'm super excited about this variety because meal prep is good, yes, but don't think for a second that you don't start to get a little bit burnt out if you're only doing 2 dishes throughout the week. So that's why I'm trying to do smaller size recipes and more of them, because yes, by day 5 or day 4, you are thinking, what else in the world could I possibly eat? But stay the course. At least you know exactly what's in this. So this week we have a wide variety of vegetables, flavors, types of dishes to choose from, and I think it'll be even more exciting than it has been before. So now we will move on to cleanup. Number 1, I just put this stuff on the back counter while I'm cleaning up, and then I'll get out all my meal prep containers and we'll get everything portioned out.